What's a creepy fact you wish you never learned? Story 1. Dead bodies moan and grunt when you move them. I was a paramedic and firefighter for 21 years. I was around a lot of dead people. My dog recently passed away, so I had to pick him up and hold him on the way to the vet. I had to keep reminding myself that the breathing I heard was just me pushing the air out of his lungs. Edit. I didn't expect this to blow up as much as it did. First, I want to thank everyone for the condolences. And I share my condolences with everyone else who has recently lost their furry companions. I also want to take this soapbox for a little bit to talk about death. Because we, as a society, don't discuss it enough. Because we don't talk or think about it. Not a lot of people are prepared when it happens. The truth is that everyone you ever knew, every pet you ever had, will someday die. Accepting this fact makes it easier to deal with. There is nothing I can do for Luigi now that he has passed away, other than to live my life as I need to, and remember him fondly forever. Obviously, everyone grieves differently, but I hope to share my perspective with hopes that it helps one person to find a way to accept the death of a loved one. Story 2. Commented this before, but if you have abdominal surgery and the surgeon needs your intestines out of the way, they don't try to get them back in exactly as they were. They can put them in pretty much any old way, and they sort themselves out. Then freaked out even more when someone else commented that you can quite often feel them wriggling themselves back into position. Everybody wants their guts rearranged. Nobody likes when the guts arrange themselves. Shaking my head. No gonna lie, I'm gonna work this into my next sexy talk. You can feel that wiggling feeling after giving birth too. Felt like I was all jello in my abdomen. Would feel a wiggle and like slipping sensation. It didn't hurt. The part that hurt was when they come in and do the abdomen rub to push the blood out of you for your uterus to contract back. That felt like pure torture. It felt like my son was still kicking inside me. I was so confused. Then grossed out when I learned the real reason. I had a cesarean for about 6 months afterward. It felt like my son was still in there kicking me. Doc told me it was probably just my guts getting back in place. Standing up after having a baby. And literally feeling everything inside you slide back down into place. Freakiest feeling ever. Scared me, cause I thought all my guts were falling out. Watching an abdominal surgery as a student nurse. Doc removed the intestines, placing them in a black garbage bag, which was attached to the gurney. When operation was finished, the bag was held over the patient's abdomen, shaken until all was out. Then he took his hand and wiggled stuff around, and proceeded to close. It's never the way they show on television. Story 3. I had to have a C-section when our daughter was born, and heard one doctor say to the other doctor, "Pass me the uterus, I'm gonna clean it." Still don't know whether my uterus was actually lifted out. Still don't want to know. Update. I am, thankfully, not as squeamish as my post may have made me look. When I heard that sentence, I immediately thought, wow, if I were more squeamish I would probably be horrified right now. Or crying. I know that people working in the medical field consider this normal. And that's okay. Stuff like this becomes normal when you have to deal with it every day. Just felt they could have said that less loudly. Or signaled to their colleague, as not everyone wants to know that. Thank you for all the comments. Totally normal. I'm assuming you had a spinal injection. So, you were relatively numb from roughly the belly button down. Once baby is out, they squeeze the Jesus out of your uterus to get to stop bleeding. They also have to remove all the good parts that were surrounding baby. It's not really a scrubbing, more of a pulling tissue with fingers or clamps. Then they shove that bad boy back in you, and away you go. My ex had our baby via C-section, and I watched. One of the more disturbing parts of it was her uterus laying on her chest, while 2 interns picked pieces of placenta off of it as they were discussing where they were going to go get lunch. To you it was your child being born, your wife getting cut open like a fish, and 2 strangers picking off pieces off her uterus. To them it was Tuesday. And honestly, aren't we lucky to live in a time where this is routine? People rarely die from these things, and everyone can just be chill. I consider myself lucky that it's just another Tuesday. A C-section made me a hospital celebrity. I was born in '85 and was one of, or the first sections done outside an OR, and in a normal room in this hospital. As such, my mother agreed to have the procedure filmed. Note, she's a doc, so it's a different mindset. I'm pretty sure my birth is still floating in the archives somewhere. Story 4. Ascaris worms are a type of large parasitic roundworm that make their home in the human digestive tract. They are endemic in many parts of the world. I used to work at a hospital where we took a lot of patients from very poor and remote places, especially Central America, where roundworm infection is very common. When you put those patients under for surgery, the anesthesia causes their blood to become slightly alkaline, which the worms hate. So after a few minutes, they will start coming out of every orifice in the body. Nose, mouth, rectum. And I'm talking full-sized worms that look just like earthworms. It is no cap. One of the grossest things you can imagine. You give those patients a drug called bendazole. They poop dead worms for 3 days, and then they're fine. Probably the funniest use of no cap I've seen. Story 5. Not so creepy. But yesterday someone posted about the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion. Some astronauts survived the explosion till they hit the ocean. Very sad to learn that. NASA's lead investigator, Robert Overmyer, concluded most if not all of the crew were alive, and possibly conscious during the entire descent until impact with the ocean. After the investigation, Overmyer stated, "I not only flew with Commander Dick Scobie, we owned a plane together. And I know Scob did everything he could to save his crew. Scob fought for any and every edge to survive. He flew that ship without wings all the way down." Story 6. Nurse here. I learned that some people will use any hole in that way, including a surgical hole in the stomach to collect poop into a bag, a colostomy. Additionally, some folks with these kinds of holes will prostitute themselves out for use of that hole. How do we know? They come in with infections in these holes and own up to the behavior. I also learned this act is called a Philly sidecar. My partner got a colostomy fitted a couple of years ago, and it literally says in the little handbook they give you for aftercare, under no circumstances should you attempt doing through the stomach. We were horrified that it happens so often it had to be put in the book. Story 7. Some people are born with a malformed mass of veins in their brain, called an AVM. And they have no idea unless it's seen on a CT or MRI. Then one day it can burst without warning, and that happy healthy person can die, suffer brain damage, paralysis, etc. No warning. This happened to my 22-year-old niece yesterday. She is in a coma now. It's heartbreaking. This happened to a buddy of mine. He was driving down the road and pulled over to call EMS after he realized he had no idea who he was or where he was going. Luckily, they got him to a major hospital which was able to perform neurosurgery and fix it. Story 8. My father's school did a guided tour through the woods, searching and learning about local herbs. A few years later, my father was still a child. Police showed up and asked him if he recognized the man in a picture that they showed him. My father explained that he was the herbalist tour guide. Apparently, the guy had murdered several boys and had my father's name and address in his car. The police had caught the guy by this point. I think he killed himself or died in suspicious circumstances. That's crazy. Glad your dad made it out. Also, nice username.